So, you've probably heard of Dale Carnegie's masterpiece, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I mean, it's a total classic for a reason. But what if I told you that most people, and yeah, maybe even you, skip the single most important part of the entire book? Seriously, it's right there at the beginning, before you get to any of the famous advice, and it's the key to making any of it actually, work.
Oh, you know the feeling, right? You read something amazing, you get this huge surge of motivation, you're highlighting passages, telling yourself, this is it, this is what I'm going to do differently, and then, poof, a week later, you are right back where you started. It's so frustrating. You have all the information, but nothing really changes.
Let's call this information amnesia. It's that huge gap between knowing something and actually doing it. And the fascinating thing is, Dale Carnegie knew this was going to happen. He totally saw it coming. He understood that just reading his words wasn't going to be enough to create any real, lasting change.
And this is the core idea he wants us to get before we learn a single technique. He says it right there in the intro. The goal isn't to just passively soak up facts. No, the goal is to fundamentally rewire your behavior, to build new habits, to literally create a new way of living. And that takes a totally different approach than just reading a book for fun.
Okay, so what's the solution then? Well, Carnegie lays out a whole system, a set of instructions for how to engage with his work. We've kind of boiled his 9 suggestions down into one simple but really powerful rule for turning that passive reading into active doing. This is that missing first step.
It all starts with step 1, prime your mind. You have to know why you're doing this and have a real, deep desire to improve. Then, step 2 is to engage actively, and that literally means reading with a pen in your hand, underlining stuff, asking questions, really wrestling with the ideas. Step 3 is maybe the most important, apply immediately. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Use one of these ideas in your very next conversation. And finally, step 4, review constantly. This isn't a one-and-done book. It's a manual you keep coming back to, checking in on how you're doing.
Carnegie really drives this point home with this quote. It reminds us that knowledge we don't use, well, it just fades away. True learning, the kind that actually sticks, is an active process. It is all about doing. Okay, so that's the what. But what about the how? What does this actually look like in practice? Let's walk through a real-world scenario and see how this active learning idea can make all the difference.
All right, so meet Alex. Like a lot of us, Alex is facing a pretty high-stakes situation at work. They've got this huge presentation tomorrow that could honestly make or break a really big deal. No pressure, right?
And the challenge here is really specific. The client isn't just on the fence. They're skeptical. They have a real grievance. They feel like the current system is unfair. So just throwing a bunch of facts and figures at them, that's not going to work. Alex has to connect with them on a human level.
Now, the old Alex might have just crossed their fingers and hoped for the best. But the new Alex, using this active learning rule, doesn't just skim the book for some vague inspiration. Nope. They have a specific problem, so they are actively hunting for a specific tool to solve it. This is step 2, engage actively, in action.
And this is where step 3, apply immediately, just clicks into place. Alex finds principle 8. So instead of starting the presentation by defending their own company, Alex decides to start by acknowledging the client's perspective. They actually spend time thinking, okay, if I were them, feeling like this was totally unfair, what would I need to hear? What would make me feel understood?
And the result? It's a total game changer. By starting from a place of empathy, Alex completely disarms the client's skepticism. The client feels heard, they feel respected, and that opens them up to actually listening to Alex's proposal. The pitch is a huge success, not because of the data, but because a real human connection was made.
So look, this isn't just a story about Alex, right? It's a blueprint for you. You can start applying this exact same process today with any book, any piece of advice you want to turn into a real-life skill.
So here it is, your toolkit, all laid out. Always start by priming your mind. Get clear on your why. Then engage actively with what you're learning. Use that pen. The crucial next step is to apply it right away, even just one little thing this week. And finally, review constantly. Put a little monthly check-in on your calendar. This system right here is the difference between information and transformation.
At the end of the day, it all boils down to this. We are drowning in information, but we are starving for wisdom. Getting information is passive. It just happens. Transformation, that's an active choice. So the only question left is, after all this, what is the one thing you will choose to do differently?